GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
Hey, this is AC Loke. You're checking out the All Bets Are Off podcast with Robbie Vegas.
What's up, rock soldiers? This is the rockstar Robbie Vegas coming at you once again with another episode of the All Bets Are Off podcast. Today we're jumping back into the world of professional wrestling. We have Tyson Dux on the show. You may know Tyson from a lot of years of doing matches for the WWE, including the Cruiserweight Classic, Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, or just being a veteran of the indie scene. Tyson's somebody that I met very early on in my career, almost right away actually, and he helped me out a lot, so it's really cool to have him on the show. We're going to ask him some fun questions and dig into his long career and see where he's going next and what he's got going on right now. So stick around and check that out. And in the meantime, here is a clip from my EP, Angels and Demons. This song is called Hold On.
Young to understand. Are you ever coming home? I'm standing here. You left me crying. You left me alone. In the end, I'm saying this to you.
What's up, my man?
How you doing, man? Long time no talk.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute, as I would say.
Yeah, right? This is very cool of you to do for me, man. I truly appreciate it.
Hey, man, no problem. Thank you. I don't mind these things at all, you know what I mean? Like, I do a lot of podcasts, but I don't do enough with guys that I know and stuff, which that's kind of refreshing when I can just shoot shit with you kind of deal. It makes it a little bit nicer.
Yeah, I mean, everything I pretty much plan on talking to you about is things that I've talked to you about on just a personal level before, so I thought it would be kind of cool to do it this way and put it out there, you know?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, for sure.
All right, so first thing I want to start with is, when did you discover your love for pro wrestling?
Love for pro wrestling started really, really early. As most kids, because I'm a kid of the 80s, born in 78, so growing up in the 80s, that's like Action Hero Central, man. Like, that's G.I. Joe, that's Thundercats, that's He-Man, and along with it came, like, WWF and, like, the Superstars on Saturday, and then Saturday Night's Main Event, and Hulk Hogan, Macho Man. All these guys are at the top of the game, and it's just a very manly, very boy-type world that I grew up in. And so the Rock and Wrestling coloring book, which was a cartoon on Saturday, it was just, it just flooded my life from an early age, and that it was the coloring book that my mom brought home that sealed the deal. And I was little, very little, but then you see Hulk Hogan, and he was in a monster truck, and he was beating up the Iron Sheik. There's a, you know what I mean? It's just, it's one of those things where you just like, it's something that, well, there's moments in your life that will just kind of like stick in there, and we don't know where that will come from. And mine was as simple as a coloring book, and then it was off to the races. I never really looked back. And I wasn't one of those guys that was ashamed, because a lot of dudes were ashamed of being wrestling fans in the 90s when they turned 13, 14. Man, I told everybody I wasn't a dork about it, but I loved it. I still love it.
Yeah, and I feel like that when you hear stories like that from guys who are in the business, they're always the ones that are the most, like, out there and talented and know what they're doing and what they're talking about, because they never really hit it. They just always let it grow.
Yeah, well, that's it. I think so, too. I think the guys that are, like, take real pride in it, and it just has, it has such a unique characteristic to it that it always stuck with you. Those dudes are the guys that, well, like, when they went to wrestling school, you knew those guys. You knew the guys that in it for themselves. They were in it for professional wrestling, and that's what I was all about. I wanted to be professional wrestling for the sake of professional wrestling. I didn't want to get into this business to make myself famous, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, it makes perfect sense. So where did your career actually start?
I started at a wrestling school when I was 18 years old in Cambridge, Ontario, up here in Canada. And it was a rough start. Like like everybody back then, like the internet was pretty brand new. I know my grade 12th year of school, that's when they were discovering this thing called the World Wide Web, and I had no idea what it was, but then quickly got on it looking for wrestling school. So I was in high school looking for a place to go. And then we got, of course, internet at my house, the old dial-up that took forever.
Yeah.
And I found, because I was going to go, there was two places I was going to go as a young man. I was either going to go to Killer Kowalski School in Massachusetts, or I was going out to the dungeon in out west in Alberta.
Okay.
But then, Massachusetts, like me being Canadian, that would have been a real ordeal, not being able to work and stuff. I did meet with Kowalski, and we hit it off and stuff when I was a kid about coming to a school, but then decided to go the middle of the ground, be in Ontario, and go to the Hart Brothers School of Wrestling, which I thought there was going to be Harts there. There were no Harts there. It was Smith Hart, the oldest Hart, and he wasn't even there training people. It was just kind of like a scam to get kids in the door, put the Hart name on there.
Yeah.
And that's what I went there, and then that raised the. I've just been lucky that I had a lot of people come in, drop in at the time, because there was a lot of guys come in and leave that place with no money and broken dreams and broken promises. I just stubborn enough stuck it out and met good people along the way to keep put me under their wing and show me some stuff and beat me up, basically. But that's basically it. Whereas, I should have went, really in hindsight, I should have stuck to my guns and gone to the dungeon and got trained out there. Would have been harder, financially harder, further away from home, being a New Brunswick kid. But, you know what I mean? It's just hindsight now.
Right. But you also started making appearances for WWE as early as 2002. So how did that come about for you?
Well, when I started around that 97. I was in 97. I was at the wrestling school doing my thing. I was there for a year, and then I tried to make my way, trying to make a living because I just moved with nothing. And was still training. I had another buddy that we lived. He brought me up to where he used to live, so it was further away from Cambridge. And I lived up there. I boarded at a place, and we just used to train at the Y on these old crash mats, old, really super stiff mats. And I just continued to train there. And we used to power bomb it, just almost like backyard stuff, but that wasn't our intention. There was nobody. We weren't doing it for anybody. We were just trying to work ourselves. So we went from. I went there and I worked out at the Y, and I just started throwing in tapes because I was on shows working for free from '98 to 2000. I worked for free. I didn't make any money at it, and we just kept training, trying to get better. I sent Tom Pritchard, who was the guy that's in charge at WWE at the time, and I just kept sending him tapes. And then he was so great with me. He's like, Tyson, you look terrible. Your body looks terrible. You need to get in better shape if you want to work for this company. And I'm like, how tall are you? I'm like, 5'8". He goes, well, you're really short, so put some effort in. So I did. I just kept throwing in tapes. I got to work with Terry Taylor for about a year. From 01 to 02, I worked Terry Taylor basically every month. And that's where my real learning came from. And I was on creatine. I was on, whey protein for the first time ever. I started to work out. And then Tom just messaged me and said, hey, if you're available for Toronto, Air Canada Center, you have a chance to have a shot. So come on in, train in the afternoon. We'll take a look at you. And the rest was history. basically.
The thing about that is you were constantly doing stuff with WWE for years after that, and you didn't have a contract. So how did you manage to have that longevity with them and always have, your matches on dark matches or Velocity or whatever they were for that long without that contract?
I was a freelance guy that went in there, and I worked so often with the company, everybody thought I was under contract. So it kind of bit me in the butt a little bit, because there was a lot of guys in the office that said, "Oh, well, just where's Tyson today?" And like, you know that he's not under contract, right? He's like an extra guy. And they're like, "Oh, damn! I thought he was with us." So it was one of those things where I was so busy, and I kept on Tom every time I went in. Did these two shows, like we'd finish Raw and SmackDown, so Heat and Velocity on the Monday, Tuesday. I'd be home on the Wednesday, and I'd message him on the Friday saying, "Thank you so much. If there's any other shots, let me know." And he just kept, because I kept that cycle going, he kept putting me on shows. So I worked there for 2 solid years before blowing out my knee on Velocity. And then even after Velocity, and it took 6 months to recover, but I was right back at it in 05. I was back working for them, and then I took a hiatus because I was working for Impact. I went back in 07, and then I went, you know what I mean? I just kept recirculating back over and over and over. And what kept me there, refreshing, is my charisma. Like I was really positive about the whole every experience I had. If they told me that you're just going to get beat down, it wasn't a big deal to me. I sold as much as I could. I sold well. If the guys gave me stuff, I made sure to capitalize on the stuff that I did do, and I just kept my charisma at an all-time high. So that's basically why they kept me around. They just thought I was the goofy dancing kid, and they loved having me there. So.
Okay. Now, you did mention that you blew out your knee, and that was against Mark Jindrak on Velocity, and I heard a story that I wanted to know if it was true. Did they actually have a contract for you ready for after that match that you didn't end up getting because you blew out your knee?
Yeah, they did. No, it wasn't written up, but we were in the final stages. So I had a dinner or lunch/dinner with Stephanie McMahon before the show, and we were just talking about different things. And then I had a meeting with Johnny Ace, like right after that lunch, and we were talking about where they wanted to place me. Would I be like a light heavyweight, or would I be like in the heavyweight, working with a heavyweight more? And he says, because you kind of have a demeanor about you, you kind of look, you could do either way. Like you could go either way. You could be working with against Crash Holly, or you could be working bigger dudes. Like, we don't know where to put you. I said, well, that's kind of a good problem, isn't it, Johnny? Because, like, I can do anything you need me to do. He says, all right, well, yeah, you know what? You're right. So let's get with Stephanie, and we'll hammer out some details, get your match done, and then come see us. And then once your match is done, we'll go over the details and start working on it. We'll start working on what we want you to do, and the idea of moving to Louisville or, like, to OVW or, like, you know what I mean? Just whatever they needed me to do. Because I'm pretty sure the plan was to put me in OVW and then get me bigger, to make me, like, get me on a program and get me bigger and working and get my work a little bit more solid, especially with the timing of doing the goofy dancing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I blew out my knee, and then I was in the back because I forget who was getting worked on. Somebody was getting worked on in the back, so I had to sit on one of their stage crate, and I was just leaning against it. With my leg was completely numb by that point. I couldn't feel it. And then Johnny, I just remember Johnny slapping me on the back, like, just give me the old side hug kind of deal. He says, that's a tough break, kid. We can't really start talking unless we know that you're going to be okay. So we're going to have to pass on what we were talking about earlier until you get back. We'll see if we can get you fixed up and then bring you back, and then we'll see where it goes from there. So that's basically it. It was like, you're fingertips away from that contract, but then just by whatever sense of timing, they just took it away.
Wow, okay. So you mentioned that you came back, started up again, but then you ended up going and doing some work with, it's Impact now, but TNA at the time, and you were part of Team Canada. So how did that come about, and what did that feel like for you after, missing out on that contract?
Well, I was called by Scott. So Scott Moore has always been with TNA, it seems. He's been their guy. And they were going to bring me in for Team Canada even earlier than what they had previously done. Because they had done the first tournament. They had Teddy Hart, and I think it was Jack Evans, and Johnny Devine, and Petey Williams. And then they swapped out a bunch of those guys, and they were going to reform it and make the one that they wanted. And Eric Young, so what happened was I was supposed to go down and work a tag with my tag partner at the time, El Tornado, and we were going to work some Mexicans, Negro Casas, and I forget who the other guy was, but it was like two very prominent, legendary names in Mexico. But we were at WWE, we couldn't get out, we couldn't get our flight. And then those guys got held up the border anyways. So we ended up not going. But then Scott called me again a month later, and the month later is when the exact day that I blew out my knee. And he called me that day.
Wow.
And I'm like, God, I'm busted, man. I can't do anything. So instead of me being the very original member with Bobby Roode, and I think it was going to be Bobby Roode, Devine, Williams, and myself, it ended up being Showtime. So Showtime Eric Young took my place for Team Canada way back. And then it wasn't until later until I had fully had a ACL recovery, but still body went to garbage. Like, I let my body go to garbage because I wasn't really mentally ready. And so when I did make my debut with Impact as Team Canada, it was a little too late for me in that regard, so it didn't go as well as it should have, unfortunately.
Gotcha, okay. But then, if we fast forward to 2009, you're debuting for Ring of Honor against Seth Rollins. So, how did that come about for you? That seemed like it just came out of nowhere. Were you already in talks with them?
Yeah, you know what happened? It was Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is me and him are good buddies. At the time, we were just, like amicable. We're just like acquaintances. But we always got along really well. And it was Kevin Owens who said that I lived in the Toronto area when they were up here in the Ted Reeves arena in Toronto. And the first night, they just asked me to come in and do a dark match, and that's because of Kevin Owens. So Kevin Owens is kind of who hooked me up. So the first night I worked with Rip Impact, and it was a dark match, and I got to meet Adam Pearce, and Adam Pearce was like, "Oh man, that's great. Are you cool coming back tomorrow?" I said, "Yeah, man, I'll come back tomorrow for sure." So then I went home, and then I came back, and then Jerry Lynn had given his cradle pile driver that night to Nigel McGuinness, and Nigel got a stinger from it, hurt his neck kind of bad. So they had a spot in the card, and they're like, "Oh man, what are we gonna do?" Because it was supposed to be McGuinness versus Seth or Tyler Black at the time,
Right.
And they said, "Hey, can you fill in inside? Can you give a competitive, 10 to 12 minute match with Seth and just go out there and do your thing?" I said, "That's what I'm here for." And I really still to this day, I love that match because Seth is great to work with, is great talent, always has been, very athletic and stuff. But the contrast of our styles worked well together. Him being like very slick and athletic, and me just being old school, kind of like just backbreakers and like hard tackles. And the match was really good. I don't think the fans I think if they went back and watched it now, they'd be more into it, but I think a lot of fans were kind of on the fence about it because it wasn't Nigel McGuinness versus Tyler Black, which they all came to see, right? But it was good. Still a great match. I love that match.
Awesome. That's so cool to hear. Now, aside from WWE, TNA, Impact, Ring of Honor, you also have been to Japan. So is that more your style? Because you mentioned you like the backbreakers and the tackles and like real hard hitting. So was that an easy thing for you to adapt to? Or was that kind of like almost out of your element at first?
No, you know what? I really appreciate the Japan style. I really appreciate that hard hitting kind of feel, that vibe. I think as I look back on it, I urge anybody that's listening that's younger and looking to get to Japan. The problem with being a foreigner and going to Japan is you automatically think you're going to have to work like them. Like people from Japan, because you grow up, you get the old tapes of All Japan and New Japan and all these other different promotions, and then you cement yourself into wanting to, or doing their style. That's not why they're bringing you in. They're bringing you in to be yourself and do an American style or a Canadian style or a Lucha Libre style, something that's different from what they're doing, because they got so many wrestlers and so many promotions over there that why would you need to do everything that they do? And I think that's the problem that I had when I first got over there, is I tried to do more of their style instead of just being me. I had a couple good matches in 0-1, like tag matches that went over really well, and we had it was great. It was great matches, but then my final match was main event for 0-1 against Hidaka, and it just kind of fell flat because it was just me going through Hidaka's motions instead of really capitalizing. And that match could have been super great, because Hidaka is a talented professional wrestler. Just unfortunately, I got caught up in trying to be something that I wasn't, and working a way that I wasn't or I shouldn't have been. And but like when I came back to Japan for All Japan, I tried to do more of that style. I tried to be more of myself and do like less of their stuff, more of my stuff. And it seemed to do a little bit better in people's, promoters and the fans' eyes.
Okay. So your career has been going since, what did you say, 1998?
You got it, 98.
So I'm afraid I'm going to miss like a ton of stuff here, but I do have to ask, in 2016, you came back to WWE to be in the Cruiserweight Classic. Can you kind of just walk us through how that came together for you and what that experience was like?
Well, it's always, the rule of thumb is you should always be ready. You should always be ready, and you should always not figure that they know who you are. You should always do your due diligence in calling and finding emails and stuff like that, especially in this day and age. Because as I was replaced by Showtime back in the day, because he answered the call, I called them saying, hey, I know that I see that you're doing a Cruiserweight Classic. If you have, if there's an opportunity to do a tournament next year, I'm more than willing. And I called at the right time. I talked to people, and he's like, send me your stuff immediately. And I did. I sent all my resume, my highlight package, all that stuff, because I had it ready. My body was in great condition. I felt good. I looked good. Because who got hurt? Amazing Red got hurt. He broke his ankle, and it was supposed to be his slot. That was his spot. It was Amazing Red was supposed to be in there, and it was supposed to be, but I took his spot because of his injury. So that, you know what I mean? I just messaged out of the blue. I said, hey, Cruiserweight Classic, I really like the sounds of that. If next year you have anything open, I would love to be a part of it. And he said, send me your stuff now. And then it was like a couple hours later, they said, you're on it. We're going to send you some legalities. Could you please sign and fax back? And so on my wedding day, or it was the day after my wedding in Vegas, I sent back like, I think it's 50 pages, dude. I sent back so many pages worth of contractual stuff that they wanted done, and then acknowledgments and all this stuff, intellectual characters, all the stuff that goes along with it. And I UPS'd it at the hotel casino that we were staying at that day. So it was neat. It was very exciting, man. Very excited to get married at the same breath and sign something that I was a part of, something really big and new.
Yeah, that's excellent. And didn't they want to do something more with you after that, but there was like border issues or something?
Yeah, you know what? The thing is, I don't know why it is the way it is. I'm not even going to try to explain it. But we didn't, like all us boys didn't work under any kind of contract, and we didn't have visas. So I don't know if it was just a shortage of time and they really wanted to pump this out when they did. So none of us had visas that were going over there and working. Even the Singh brothers were working off their Global Force visa, which it wouldn't be allowed, but like God bless them. It's like I'd be doing the same damn thing. They just used their Global Force contract visas to get over with no issues, whereas I got hung up because of the popularity of the Cruiserweight Classic. By the time it was time to go back, as soon as I got off the flight back home after the set of taping, I had messages already saying, we want you back. We want you to work the Cruiserweight Classic as filler. So you're doing some dark matches. We also want you to do some coaching for the week that you're down here. So you're going to be busy. And then on top of it, when I got turned around the border, Pierce had messaged me and said, Ty, where are you? You missed your flight. You have to be here in the morning because you're working with Kenta on NXT. It's his comeback from his shoulder injury, and we need you to have a strong style type match with them. And I'm like, well, I am not making it, my friend. I'm stuck because of popularity, because I didn't have a visa, they found out right away. And then I told them, I straight up lied and said, listen, I'm not making any money at this thing. And then they said, okay, that's fine. I said, I'm doing it just to get a job. So then they looked they looked up the Cruiserweight Classic, and then they looked up the cost of the ticket. And then that's what burnt me.
Oh,
they
man.
said, they like any loophole they could find to get me from not going. So they said, hey, people are paying for tickets. This is America. In America, we don't do these kind of things. You know, if they're paying for it, you can't go.
Wow.
And that was it, dude. That was the most depressing ride home I have ever had.
Oh, my God. I can only imagine. Holy shit. So that happens, but then a year later, you find yourself back with Impact Wrestling. Was that something that you were looking to do since your first run and you finally got the chance, or did that just kind of fall into your lap?
That just fell in my lap. If you're coming to Canada, there's great talent in Canada, but like at the top of the heap, when you're looking for any kind of like a name kind of value that isn't really known but is more known than others, they're going to go with different picks, right? So obviously, I got on that set of tapings in Ottawa for Impact and did a few in Toronto after the fact. So I've done quite a few little shots with Impact as well as there were going through Fight Network, and then they like completely switched over to Vice. I do believe Vice are on now, but that was it.
Okay. So we keep talking about like Ring of Honor, WWE, Impact, Japan, all these big places, but who are some of your favorite independent promotions that you work for?
Ooh, you know what? I work a lot for a company up here. They kept me busy before everything. It was Smash Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
They've kept me super, super busy. But there's lots of like little niche companies. I love working for Smash because it kept me busy. They use a lot of my students, and it's good. But then there's lots of great companies out there. I just got back. Now, I just made it home before they closed down the borders. I was in PCW in the UK, and I was over at WXW in Germany, and I had like a straight up riot there. It was so much fun to see. I've always wanted to be in those areas and experience wrestling there. So I finally did, and it was great. It was great to be a part of WXW and their 16 Carat, like just being on the shows there.
Mm-hmm.
And then PCW, I got to work at the Tower Circus there in Blackpool, you know, the one that Regal talks about all the time in his book. And I got to work there, like a very famous arena or like circus. It was really cool. And then there's going to be a lot of places. There's North Pro out east. There's Winnipeg Pro in Winnipeg, of course. I was just about to go to All-Star Wrestling in Vancouver. And there's lots of places in the States that they'll pop up. There's Sanctuary out in Detroit. I used to work in Buffalo, like a ton at ESW, and I believe it's Bordertown. Was it Bordertown? Border City. No, what was it?
Buffalo Championship Wrestling.
Buffalo Championship Wrestling, BCW. That's right.
Yep.
So like just all these places, all these like great little companies with like different styles and different talent and all that stuff. So everywhere I go, I take something from it. I enjoy the art of professional wrestling. It don't matter where I go, as long as they let me perform, I'm good.
Okay, fair. And just a side story, I met you in Buffalo at BCW when I first started, so 10 years ago now. Probably one of the first people I met when I started doing actual shows was you. And you were one of the first people to actually let me listen and ask questions and critique things for me. And you are a big reason why I know how to put a match together. That's always something that sticks with me when people ask me who I've looked up to or learned from, you're the first name that comes out of my mouth, because you were the first one to say, this nobody kid over here is curious and I'm going to help him, and I will never forget that.
Well, that's Neil now. See, I can't even remember I remember when we were working together, like, on those shows together, but I think it's just it's never been a question of me saying stuff for the reason, like, not for I don't just say it to boost my own ego. I've never been that guy. I've loved, like I said, I've loved pro wrestling more than I love myself. And I've always wanted to give back. And I've always wanted it to be improved. And the only way wrestling will improve is if the guys improve and you're helping them along and stuff like that. And as long as the person is willing to listen and put in some effort and work, man, I'm like, I'll never turn anybody away. I've never ever not helped somebody as long as they come with the willingness to either listen or learn or catch something out of it or put the work in. I'm all about it. And I wish there was more guys. There are lots of guys out there that will do that, but we could always serve to have a few more just to make this business grow and become better and not be such a shadow of its former self. Like, a lot of the new stuff is great and, like, athletic and stuff like that, but, like, we're talking about, like, years, like 100 years or more now of pro wrestling, and, like, and there's so much to learn within that 100 years. You don't always have to stick with the stuff that we're doing now, because it's right in your face now. You can always go back in time and learn so much more. Right,
yeah, absolutely. And I do have to say, like, I'll say it right here on the podcast, I seriously appreciate all the help that I got from you. I don't care how many years have passed. Like, I will always remember that. So thank you.
You are welcome.
Which kind of brings me to my next thing that I want to talk to you about. Is you mentioned you have students and you have a wrestling school now. And I wanted to know, was that always an end goal for you? Was that something you set out to always end up doing, is passing the torch down to the next generation?
See, I didn't know. Honestly, it came to me, like, I've always been a fan of training. I love training, and I love teaching. I love teaching guys. Like I said, like, passing it on has always been a real passion of mine to, like, improve the next generation. I think what it was is, as I get a little bit older, still in my prime, but as I start to slow down, I don't think I never want to leave this business. And I have a lot of guys that I grew up with, wrestled all over the place, town to town, who have since retired and moved on to other things and never really got their break. And so, or maybe they just got little shots here and there, and now they're like, they're working at a construction company, or they're working a little store where they have a store, or they're selling furniture or something like that. Those guys, when I talk to them now, always want to talk about the good old days, and they always want to just go nostalgic. They don't really think about the present, or they don't think about the future. They seem it seems like their soul has been kind of taken away a little bit.
Yeah.
And I never want that. Like, I never want to be that. And it gave me a bit of a reality check. Is like, I never, ever want to leave professional wrestling, because to leave what I do, it's like taking a part of my soul away, taking who I am away after spending nearly 24 years at it. So I cannot see myself ever letting it go. So I've had to evolve my way of thinking and think, like, how am I gonna do this? How am I going to continue to strive and believe and, like, make money and support my family in the realm of professional wrestling? So it was a no-brainer. Once I was able to purchase a ring and find a place to put it up, I was off to the races. Like, there's no other option for me, really.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In my mind.
Well, it has to be a really cool feeling for you, too, that one of your students is your son.
It's really cool, and, like, what's even cooler is he's got his own style, and he's got his own way of thinking, and he's just turned 18, he's getting in better shape. He's lost over, like, close to 70 pounds. He's lost a lot of weight since living with his mother and, like, moving in with me. He's in great shape. He works hard. He's got brand new gear he got for his birthday. He just turned 18. And, like, his mentality, because he's been around the business all of his life. His whole entire life he's been in a wrestling ring. From the moment he could crawl, he was crawling in a ring. So he knows this business more than like a lot of guys because he's submersed himself in it since he was a little guy. So it's neat to see the way he thinks because his values and his ways are a little bit different than mine, but in a good way. And he's very good. And I'm super proud of him, and I'm super proud of where I think he can go with it. And hopefully he does really well for himself because he's a good kid and has a good head on his shoulders.
Excellent. That's awesome. Can you give our listeners just the info for your school if anybody wants to check it out, reach out to you, sign up, and any of that stuff?
Yeah, you know what? I just started a YouTube channel, so I got little blurbs on there, and all my contacts, everything that I have is either you can follow me like on any kind of social media account is Tyson Dux, D-U-X. So you just have to @Tyson Dux, or if you're on Facebook, just put Tyson Dux in there. You'll find my school because it's Tyson Dux Wrestling Factory. They'll put you everything I have is linked together. So if you just find YouTube, you find Tyson Dux, you'll find my channel. You go to the Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, all over there on everything. So all you have to do is all my messages are all wide open. I don't block anybody. I don't put any privacy settings on it. I expect people to message me either with help or with whatever concerns, or even just inquiries into learning to be a professional wrestler or learning to be a better professional wrestler. I'll take them all. And so basically that's it. I try to make it as easy as possible.
Okay, great. So is it true that you played the role of Chris Benoit on the Dark Side of the Ring series on Viceland?
It is. It's very much true. I got a very much a Chris Benoit style body. I have a Chris Benoit style face, and they came knocking for me on this one. It took a lot of paint and makeup to cover up my tattoos, but I was Chris Benoit for both those episodes. And the way I got that, and the way they come hunting me down, is I was on the pilot episode. So the pilot episode of the first season, the Bruiser Brody episode, I'm Dutch Mantel.
Oh,
so
okay.
The producer, Evan, used to go to all the shows. He was just scouting people at wrestling shows. I was at a Superkick show in Toronto, and he saw me there and he's like, oh, damn, okay, there we go. That dude has a beard and he's old school, and it's just the way it's been. They asked me to do Dutch Mantel, which I did, and then they messaged me mid-season or midway through filming to ask me to play Kerry Von Erich, but I was away on tour, I think in Newfoundland, working for a great company out there, NEW in Newfoundland, and so I couldn't make it. So then they messaged me 2 weeks prior, and then I signed a little, the confidentiality and all the waivers and all the stuff that went with it, and basically a contract to do Chris Benoit for season 2. So I'm just wondering what they're going to make me do in season 3.
That's great. So another thing that just kind of fell into your lap, it just ended up happening.
Well, that's the thing with wrestling. It's very universal and it's very large, but yet it's very still tight-knit and very, very niche, a very niche type market. So as big as you feel it is or looks like it is, you see guys come and go and pass by and put guys over all the time. And that basically, you seem to fall into it. Like I said, always be ready and always have your stuff, and basically have your bag packed all the time and get ready to go. Because you never know at the drop of a hat. You don't know tomorrow. They could ask you to do AEW or WWE or go to Japan or something like that. So you always have to be on the ready.
Right. And in that same vein, who over the years have you crossed paths with that you would say are some of your favorite opponents?
Oh, the list is long. I just messaged Josh Alexander because I just watched the match. We had a match in front of less than 50 people, and we worked so stupid hard. But Josh's mentality is work hard or die trying. And so I worked with Alexander at this show, and I just watched that. I was looking for some content to put up online, and that match was like a great match, just a solid slugfest, basically. And I just messaged him dude, I just watched this for the first time. I'm dude, I miss you. He was great. I know Tarek out of Smash. Tarek is one of those guys that should be more well-known than he is. A tremendous worker. Brent Banks is another super skilled, talented person. There's Marcus Burke and Mike Hughes from out east. They're great dudes. There's Tyler Colton. He's out of Winnipeg. There's all kinds of, like, the boys out of Detroit. Anybody there, like, there's Hughes. There's, what is his name now? Hughes, Mad Dragon. I forget what his Impact name is. But there's him. There's Jake something. Like, Jeff, there's such a hotbed of talent. One of my favorite guys right now would be Tyler Turva.
Mm-hmm.
He and Tyler Turva are basically running up and down Canada, giving those NWA-style Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair matches right now. As of right now, like, once wrestling gets back to getting back to it, that's me and him are doing basically the Steamboat Flair feud everywhere, and just that sense of timing. Don't have to call much, just go out there and let her go, and it's so refreshing. It's so great to be working with him. Like Tyler Turv is one of those guys that just does not get enough credit. The young man is very, very talented, and I hope things come his way.
Well, with all that being said, what do you find is next for you? Do you still have a bucket list of things you'd like to achieve, or any opponents you'd still like to work with, or?
Yeah, you know what? I still have opponents. Like, I've never been that guy, but I've slowly turned into this guy that I want to work with a few guys like Nick Aldis. We were supposed to wrestle for the NWA title in Montreal for FLQ, another great little company, but it got sidetracked because of COVID. It was supposed to be in May.
Mm-hmm.
I still want to work with Aldis. I want to work with Jay Lethal one-on-one. I've had 6-man tags. I've had triple threats. I would like to do a one-on-one with him. Roosh for Rush. I call him Rush. Everybody calls him Roosh. ROH. He's another good old boy that I'd like to get in there with. Dustin Rhodes. I want to get in there with him. I haven't had the opportunity. I've worked with Cody, and I would love to work his brother now. And so there are names out there, like, finally, after all these years, I finally, like, hey, I really want to, because I don't know, I'm not saying this morbidly, but I don't know how long, like, I have at it, so I want to make sure that the time that I do have is, I make sure that I'm at the best, because I'm at the prime of both mindset and physically set. Even though I'm 42, I can still go with anybody, and I just want to make a real mark. I just want to put out the kind of stuff that I want to see back in professional wrestling, and even if it doesn't really get me over, I hope the style and the feel and the old school flair, I hope that stuff gets over a little bit. Plus, I got new great big yellow Macho Man style boots I got to break in, so I just, everything is. Like, I'll go until I drop, though, in there. I won't stop until I can't get in that ring anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, you're, like you said, you're still in great shape, and you're at the top of your game right now, and I'll always preach and be one of your biggest supporters out there that you got to watch Tyson Dux. So, dude, so cool to have you on today and talk about all these things, and I can't wait to see what's going on next with you after all this COVID stuff is finally officially over. But before I let you go, can you just plug all your social media one more time for everybody, so if anybody's not following you, they can jump on that train?
Yeah, you know what? Just anything as simple as possible. If you find Tyson Dux, D-U-S, you got me. So at Tyson Dux me everywhere, either Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, all of it. Just do it that way, and then it'll just lead. I got, like I said, my school is the Tyson Dux Wrestling Factory out of London, Ontario. We are actually starting back next week. We got some restrictions, of course, but we're all eager to get back to it, get back to work a little bit now. It's nice. It's nice that we're finally getting into the routine of being able to get back to work. So that's basically all my stuff. I got a clothing line that I've started, but like I said, everything's all linked through that, man. Just hit it up there.
Excellent. I mean, you've had a hell of a career since 1998, and I'm wishing you many, many more years, man. Thank you again for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. It was a real pleasure to talk to you again.
You too. Have a good night. All right, rockers, so that was Tyson Dux. What a fun interview. I haven't talked to him in a long time, so that was really fun for me, and I hope you guys really enjoyed that. So, of course, we want you to check out unchainedmuscle.uk. That's going to be our Vegas 20. We'll save you 20% on your gym gear at checkout. I also want to thank you guys for not only listening to the show, but supporting my Pro Wrestling Tees store. And if you haven't yet, head over to Pro Wrestling Tees. Rockstar Robbie Vegas in the search bar will bring up 8 different designs, including one for this podcast, and some music shirts as well. Make sure you check those out. I do appreciate all of you who are downloading my EP, Angels and Demons, my new single, This Way, and I do have a full length coming out not too far ahead, so I will be letting you guys know when that happens as well, and we will catch you next time on the All Bets Are Off podcast.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.